Hey, what's up, you guys? Welcome back to the Hometown Hustle episode 3. Today we talk with Julie Thomas, whom I consider to be the Wonder Woman of our community.
Julie comes to us with an extensive background in law enforcement, over 20 years and 18 years in international law, all while building a local business, Concierge Home and Business Watch.
That's right. She has an amazing story, you guys, so tune into this one. It's going to be really good.
Here we go.
Welcome to the Hometown Hustle, a podcast showcasing small business owners and leaders who are making an impact here in the Rogue Valley. Come join us as we go one-on-one with some of the most inspiring people that call Southern Oregon their home. Now, here's your hosts, Daniel Bufano and Michael O'Coin.
Hi, Julie.
How are you guys?
We're doing good.
Awesome.
Yeah. Just thank you for coming, first of all. I know we've kind of been chatting for a few minutes already, but I just wanted to say thank you for coming. This is awesome. You are our third guest now, and I have a ton of respect for you. We've talked a lot over the last couple of years, just about law enforcement and things in that nature, and I'm sure we'll touch on that a little bit today, but I'm really excited you're here. I think you are the Wonder Woman of Grants Pass, and so you're saving the day. And so I'm just really excited that you're here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah. So you're a 20-year law enforcement veteran with 18 years outside of law enforcement, but still involved.
International law enforcement advising.
Give us a little short bio of who you are and what you're doing now. You can start from the beginning if you want, or because I'm going to ask you about it anyway. So yeah, go for it.
Well, this is a Grants Pass show, so I guess I'll start with that.
Okay.
My family moved here when I was a young teenager, and moved my 5 brothers and sisters up here, and we bought a little mini farm on Upper River Road, and this became our home. All my little brothers and sisters all graduated in the area, and I always wanted to come back. Had the opportunity to leave for work, like most young people used to have to do because we didn't have jobs for the longest time. So I went back to California. I was in Santa Barbara and moved my way down to San Diego. And one morning I woke up and decided that I wanted to be a police officer for a living.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I was a hairstylist before that.
Yeah.
Imagine.
Wow. Yeah. I want to stop there for a minute because that's a question that I wanted to ask. And I think we've talked about it before, just in our casual conversations, but where did that come from? Because, I mean, you're not a big person by any means, and you're super kind. You don't come across as somebody that can kick my ass and arrest me and take me to jail. So, like, where did that come from? Why?
It's actually a kind of a miraculous story, believe it or not. Ever since I was a little girl, there's 2 things that I couldn't tolerate, and God just made me this way, right? I can't tolerate bad guys and bullies my whole life. So I was the kid in school that beat up the bullies. And I just felt so bad for those who couldn't defend themselves and were so helpless. And like to this day, I hate bad guys and bullies. And it never occurred to me to be a police officer. I was kind of a rough and tumble kid. I was a straight A student, but I was a rough and tumble street kid. And I just woke up one morning and said, you know what? This is what I want to do for a living. I want to be able to make a difference. I want to be able to right wrongs and legally stop bad guys from bullying, right?
Yeah.
What was interesting, though, is it was just a flash. And I didn't make the connection then that this was intrinsic in me. I just woke up one morning, that's what I wanted to do. It took me 2 weeks to have the courage to even go to the local police station in San Diego to ask how to apply. I went and bought a suit. I was so nervous I almost threw up in the parking lot. And it was just so far out of anything I had ever done before. And I walked in all dressed up and spiffy, ready to pass out. And I said, I'd like to apply for a position as a police officer. And she goes, here's an application, bring it back when you're done. That was it. So I filled it out, and 18 months later, it was a very highly competitive process with thousands of people applying. And 18 months later, I was hired by San Diego Police, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me next to my kids and other really wonderful things. But I was so perfectly suited for that. even to this day, my husband said, you never should have left, because if I see something that is wrong, somebody's bullying, somebody is lying, somebody's cheating, and somebody is really helpless, it makes me crazy. It makes me crazy, and I feel like I need to be running in and being a part of fixing that problem. Prevention is priceless. I'd rather we didn't have bad guys at all, but bad guys keep cropping their ugly heads up, and so, there's always plenty of work for that. But that's how I got into law enforcement, and loved every day of it.
And what was that experience like in San Diego as a young girl?
How long were you in San Diego as a police officer?
I have just about 8 years.
8 years?
Yeah. I was young. I was older for being in a police academy. I was 27, so a lot of people will go in right at 21. But I went at 27, and I was I was just ready and able, and I had been training, and I was strong, and I was fit, and I was young enough that it just all made sense to me. It was so perfect for me. So I asked, they allow you to pick your top 3 choices of where you want to work, and I picked the meanest, nastiest, ugliest, worst neighborhoods to work in, because I thought, when better will I be prepared to handle the worst of the worst than fresh out of the academy? So I graduated with honors from my academy and top of my class, and I think somebody beat me in firearms, but didn't really beat me, just beat me in numbers. But I started out right away. I worked in all the worst places the whole time I was there, and I loved every minute of it. And it was really cool. I had a field training officer. He was awesome, and he just knew I could do it.
Michael loves acronyms, so that's an FTO just for you, buddy.
Yes, FTO.
I know.
I've learned over the years to don't use acronyms. But I had a really great FTO, and he just knew that I was fit for this, and he really took it serious in my training. So I was really well trained. And I remember the first moment that I realized this might be tough is there was a bad guy, and it looked like there was a drug deal going on, and I was in training, and I was with my field training officer, and I said, hey, come over here. And I'm in uniform. Of course, he's going to come over here, right? And he goes, no. And he took off running. So I'm chasing after him going, stop police, stop police, stop police. And my FTO's running alongside of me, and he taps me, and he goes, you ready to stop now? And I go, no, he's still running. He goes, what were you going to do, arrest him? You didn't actually see anything. It was suspicious of maybe a drug deal, but you just needed to talk to him. He doesn't want to talk to you. And I said, what do you mean? I'm in uniform. I'm wearing a gun. I have a badge on. What do you mean you can just run away from me? So that was my first eye-opening experience. And I realized, because out of high school, I was a hairstylist. So I had to learn how to talk to anybody in all walks of life, right? CEO of a company or a 10-year-old just coming out of a soccer game or whatever. So I really took that experience with communication and my experience. I was in drama in school, and so I used that for like role play, and I really got confident and competent in my de-escalation and communication capacity to stay safe and to be more effective. Somebody asked me one time, how do you get somebody into handcuffs? And I said, I just ask them to turn around and put their hands behind their back. I mean, I've always believed that if you treat people with dignity, and we have a responsibility to treat people with dignity. We don't have to respect the behavior. We don't have to respect a pedophile, but we have to treat people with dignity as human beings, right? Mm-hmm. And so I always did that as a police officer. They didn't do it to me. Even if they fought with me or tried to harm me, they were in a really bad place no matter what. Drugs, alcohol, mental health, bad guys, bad upbringing, abuse, whatever. So I'm not the judge, but I did have a job to do. So I treated people with dignity as a human being, and I got really good compliance. And I am proud to say, I'm sad to say that I did get in quite a few physical fights. A few times afterwards, I go, wow, I could have died. But I was really well protected, thank goodness, because I know this isn't a Christian station, but I remember waking up one morning and going, God, if I'm going to die doing this, or if it's not a good fit, let me fail this test. And I aced all the tests as I went along. Yeah. So I knew he wasn't going to, I knew I had some protection there. Now I forgot what I was going to say, but yeah, no, it was absolutely amazing. And what I was going to say is, in every physical altercation that I had, I'm proud to say that I never fought with anybody who were sane or sober ever. It was only people who were under the influence or mentally ill.
Yeah.
And that gave me confidence that I'm treating people the way I should be.
They can't hit me if I tried. They're not going to be able to punch me. They can't even stand up straight.
Well, it's interesting because with so many people who are mentally ill and under the influence, all they see is a barrier, and they're just going to fight like heck to break down that barrier, whatever it is.
Right.
And then of course, then we call in the backup or whatever we needed to do to make it safe. But everybody else, I was able to gain compliance, and so I feel thankful for that.
That's
and
cool.
It breaks my heart, the stuff that we see law enforcement going through today. I mean, when I was there, It was in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, and so it was pretty tough back then too. But this is unprecedented what we're seeing in law
Truly
enforcement.
is.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah,
It is. It's sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's a topic for another day.
Yeah.
Probably another podcast.
Yeah. We'll save that for the donut operator and all the other people
Yeah.
who do
Yeah,
the police
there you
shooting
go.
breakdowns.
There you go.
So you said 8 years in San Diego, and then
Yeah.
you moved back up to Grants Pass?
Correct.
Okay.
I was raising my 2 small kids, ended up being a single mom, had not planned on that at all, loved my job, didn't want to leave it. But I was working juvenile gangs at the time, and I was a patrol officer. And I picked up a 10-year-old kid with $10,000 worth of crack cocaine in his pocket. And I was trying to explain to him as I was taking him to juvie in the back of my patrol vehicle how important getting an education was. He could care less about
could
that.
care less,
Yeah,
yep.
he was already in the gangs. He was already the runner. He was already involved. It was heartbreaking. And so I'm thinking, I'm working with all these juvenile gangs. I'm working with all these kids on the streets. I've seen where they've come from, a lot of them, and this vicious cycle. And now I'm a single mom, so now my kids are latchkey kids, and I'm not going to be there when they get out of school in the afternoon. No, my kids are not going to be a statistic. And this was too big. I loved working juvenile gangs and drugs and all the areas that I worked, but it was too big for me to fix overnight, and my kids were going to be in schools and dealing with kids like that. And I said, there's got to be a better place, a safer place for me to raise them. And I had virtually grown up here, and I loved it here. And so I called a family member and I said, hey, if you could just keep your eyes and ears open, check the newspaper or whatever, if there's ever a position available, I'd love to apply for it. Honest to goodness, this is the truth. So the Daily Courier comes out the next day with one ad for one police officer for Grants Pass Police. Never posted it again. It was just one. And my sister-in-law calls me up. She goes, Julie, you're not going to believe it. Grants Pass is hiring. I go, what? So I found out about it, et cetera, et cetera. Had no idea that hundreds of people saw that ad.
I bet.
And they just flocked here. I don't even remember how many, over 300 or something, and it was massive.
Yeah, back then it was a desirable job, right?
Absolutely. And Grants Pass was a desirable place,
Right.
as it is still today. And so they broke up the testing. So I came up here for the first parts of the test, and I got through all of that. And then I went back home, and I told a police officer friend of mine, I said, there's so many officers up there that are out of work because, we have levies here. I'd never heard of that.
Yeah.
And they'd come from all over the country, and they didn't have jobs. I have a job I love. I said, I'm going to step down and let somebody else have it. And he goes, wait a minute. Don't you think your kids deserve to have the same good quality of life as theirs? And I said, yeah. And he said, then get up there and get that job. So I got the job. It was incredible. And so I was able to move my kids here, and I went from a little tiny apartment in San Diego to not a huge house, but a big house right off of Lower River Road. Remember, my family was on Upper River Road, and got to raise them there with a whole acre of grass that was a soccer field part of the year, a football field part of the year, a golf course part of the year. It was just amazing. And I was able to raise them here and loved being a Grants Pass police officer. Every day I loved it. Yeah. And I was the second female police officer, so there were some challenges there.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And how long were you here at GP?
Almost 8 years.
8 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I got promoted to state and ended up going to Dallas. I was working in Dallas, but Salem area. And I was up there for 3 years. Otherwise, we never would have left. But it was a really important job, and I was able to represent law enforcement agencies around the whole state. So I got to do kind of what I was doing here, but at a much greater level up there. So I went up there for 3 years and then went international. So it took me a long time to come back.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah, and then you're still doing international work, kind of.
Yep, just wrapping it up.
How did that get started? Like, how do you go from being a police officer and then start doing international work. How does that even?
I know. How do you make that transition, right?
No, how does that?
Long story short, I was doing some work for Department of Justice across the country while I was working in Salem area.
Okay.
And I did it part-time on my own time. And I was working with law enforcement agencies to help them to work better, more closely with their communities, to help them to connect, to problem solve together, to identify what their issues are, and then do something to fix them, right? Instead of being us versus them.
Right.
And that was kind of my expertise. That was what I loved doing, is bringing communities together. And a guy who knew my work was hired by DOJ to go to Kosovo to build the very first democratic police service in 1999, right after the war and after NATO had stopped all the bombing and the ethnic cleansing and genocide. It was horrific. Yeah. And so he went there, and he had law enforcement experience, and he was a Marine. So he went over there and built the first democratic police service in the country of Kosovo, in the Balkans, former Yugoslavia. And he sent all those officers out. There were like 7,000 of them over time, and had them all working in the communities. There was so much because police officers had killed community members previously, and community members had killed police officers, and there was so much strife, and the police wanted to work with the community wanted to work with the police. They couldn't do it. Yeah. And he said, you know what, we can do this better. And so he called me and a couple other people that he knew, and we put together a small team, and we flew to Kosovo. And I will tell you, I didn't even have a passport at the time, and I said, Kosovo what? Had no idea where this place was. I was so into just doing my job and what's in my, in my face. I didn't know what was going on around the world. And he went there and did an assessment and found out that we could do something similar to what we were doing here in the United States. We could do it over there. I was there 7 years.
Wow.
And built a countrywide program that is still thriving today. And this was in 2003.
Wow.
Incredible. It was so eye-opening. And they did, because of what we were doing and because they were willing to come to the table and work together, it's so relevant for what we see today. They're not even willing to come to the table, but they were so ready for things to stop, to pass, and just start working together, and we can really communicate. I brought police officers and community leaders and government leaders and football moms and just people that represented a diverse population of the community, brought them all together to have this conversation and find common ground. And 100% of the time in every country I've worked in, the common ground was safety. They all just wanted to be safe. They wanted to be safe in their home. They wanted to be safe in their schools. They wanted their kids to be safe when they're walking to school. They wanted to go to the market. And so once we found the common ground, we were able to bring people together and in some cases train them to work together. And how do we problem solve? How do we do this? And then how do they communicate on their own together and that kind of stuff? It was just incredible. And I've been in, I don't even know how many countries now doing similar work around the globe. And every single one of them has so impacted me because all I do is just share what we've done right and what we've done wrong and say, here, let's try and do this better. You can learn from our mistakes. And the impact that's being made in some of those programs, it's not just me. I just am a conduit to being able to be there and do it. But, I mean, impacting suicides and sexual assaults and domestic violence in Tajikistan. I mean, this was just huge. And in Bosnia and, in Ukraine, the work that we've been able to do working with the communities and the police officers is just amazing. So so somebody knew me, and to answer your question, somebody knew me and said, would you be willing? And I got to take my kids, which was a godsend. And they were preteen at the time. Okay. They were like 12 and 15, both my boys. Wow. And it was an eye-opening experience. Got to travel all over and do humanitarian work and work with police officers and multi-ethnic youth camps. And so, it was really amazing experience.
What a great thing to have when you grow up like that. In other cultures, you can see how other people live. And
they say that.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I grew up in Guam.
Oh, wow.
So, but we got to travel all over, so it's like, and I've been all over at a young age, and it's huge. It's huge.
And people don't understand. You come home and they're just kind of glazed over when you try and share the stories, right?
And you don't realize how young we are, right?
Yeah.
I mean, spending almost a year in France, or, and some time in Spain, and
Right.
how old everything is.
Our oldest building is 200 years. They have families 2,000 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
but
it's
just
true.
getting all that in and absorbing it, especially at a young age, so it's a great thing.
Absolutely.
I recommend, I've talked to a lot of younger people here in town, and since I've been traveled, they always kind of like flock to me a little bit. And I've always told them, get out.
Absolutely.
I love Grants Pass. I've always come back.
Yep,
I've lived in Cleveland for a little bit. I've lived down in LA for a little bit, and I always end up back here.
Yep.
But
That's
if you
the
don't go,
trajectory.
you'll probably never leave.
No.
So
no. And you don't know what you're missing out
And
on.
you don't.
And you can really appreciate home. You can really appreciate Grants Pass if you see other places around the world.
100%.
I remember one time thinking that this was, after I moved here, this is the first place I've ever lived that was better than any vacation I ever went on. Right? Because normally you live somewhere and it's horrible and it's noisy and it's polluted and it's crowded, and you have to go off to some vacation to get what, your peace. Instead, no matter where I went, the peace was always here. The place, the beauty, the air, the trees, everything was always here.
In a lot of my travels, I've bumped into people that like, you're from Southern Oregon. We go to the Ashland Festival or Shakespearean Festival, and I'm in Paris, and they're like going, that's where we go to vacation. I'm like going, okay, well, I live there. That's not too bad, I guess.
Yeah, that's true.
Paris, yeah, for sure.
Another really quick story. The boys both graduated from high school at the same time because they were doing homeschooling, so they were caught up at the same time, and they both wanted to come home and graduate with their friends. So I had them come back and got them all set up, and I was still working overseas. So after graduation, I told the boys, I said, for graduation present, I'll take you anywhere in the world, but you have to decide to go to the same place. It doesn't matter where. And I figured Australia or something crazy that we haven't done before. And they both came back to me and said, Mom, we want to go to Grants Pass. That was their graduation present. And we came back here and did all the fun things that we did when they were growing up that we still love to do. And now they're here with their kids doing the same things. Our favorite restaurants, floating the river, fishing the river, camping, hiking. I mean, everything that we did growing up. And that was the thing for them. And they could go anywhere. They could live anywhere in the world, and they were smart and successful, and they could do anything, and they're raising their families here. That's Grants Pass, right? And I have no intention of leaving ever.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge sign of a great community for sure. Yeah, that's cool. So you just got back from Ukraine,
Correct.
and you are the owner of Concierge Home and Business Watch.
Correct.
Tell me about how you started that business here in Grants Pass and why you felt there was a need. And then, just kind of talk about the evolution of that and how it's come about. Cause it's an amazing
It's a fun
business.
story.
From international work with the DOJ to a community watch program here in Grants
I
Pass.
know, right?
Yeah.
How does this all tie in?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
All about community safety. So, with Grants Pass and San Diego and doing the international work, it was all just making our community safer and people feeling better. I actually met my husband of now 13 years. I met him working in Kosovo, of all places.
Wow.
And he worked for DOJ, and he has 30 years law enforcement experience and almost 20 years of international work. And we didn't actually work together. He was representing Washington, D.C. in the funding for my program. So he showed up, and I had to, he was auditing all the programs. How are you spending the U.S. money? That's how we met. Long story short, he ended up staying out there. We fell in love, decided we wanted to get married. He has 3 boys. I had 2 boys. And so we took a trip back home to introduce everybody and said, we really want to get married and we really would like your blessing. And oh, by the way, because he had a place in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill, I said, look, I'll go anywhere. I'll live anywhere with you around the world, but come check out Grants Pass. Mm-hmm. And he came to Grants Pass and he said, I love it. Let's make this our home. Wow. So we decided we're going to make it our home. And we ended up getting to purchase a place right here in Colonial Valley. We're neighbors.
Yes, we are.
And then we flew back and went back overseas. Well, my contract changed and we were going to be separated by continents. And it took us 30 years to find each other, and we were not going to be separated. We didn't know what to do. They said, well, why don't we stop our international work and go home and start a business and work together side by side? Why not, right? But we've got to use that 50 years law enforcement experience. And so we came home, and it's more convoluted than that, but we came home and we met with everybody, community leaders and law enforcement and the sheriff's office and everybody, and said, where's the gap? law enforcement is here doing great things, and the community is here doing great things with Neighborhood Watch, Business Association, watching out for each other. Where's the gap? And we found the gap was a pretty wide gap. And we built the company to bridge that gap between law enforcement and the community. And we started with Concierge Home Watch, and the idea was people weren't leaving because they were nervous about burglary or theft, or they the animals, and they had all this life that they couldn't leave, and so they were just too nervous to go. And so we created Home Watch, where they call us up, former law enforcement is going to watch your house for you. We'll respond to the alarm. We'll make sure everything is secure as it should be. We can do, regular checks of the home and property, interior, and do anything that you need us to do so that you have peace of mind that you can travel. And that's where it started. And we had like 5 customers or something.
Mm-hmm. And you were doing all that work yourself.
Jeff and I. And it exploded. And, the history, we had law enforcement lose the bulk of their funding several years. This was in 2009. And so in 2011 and 12, they started losing their funding. And so people were getting released out of jail, and deputies were getting laid off, and we lost 24/7 patrols and the detective division eventually, and it just blew up. Mm-hmm. Our phones never stopped ringing. So we actually had to expand because the need was so great from Concierge Home Watch to Concierge Home and Business Watch, and became a full service security company. And there's lots of really incredible stories to share, which we don't have time for. But we were able to meet that growing need of our community, whether it's 24/7 patrols, alarm response, calls for service, businesses, if they had a transient, or a drunk or somebody, or if there's a fight, or, you name it, whatever it is, whatever business or whatever resident needed, there wasn't anything that we could do. I said if it's legal, ethical, moral, and we have the capacity to do it, we're going to say yes. And that's what we did, and we built the business in that regard. And this year we ended up with 75 security officers working all of Southern Oregon, and have been getting calls from all over the state for being able to do both Home Watch and Business Watch services. Wow. Special events we do. Whatever it is for safety and security, we do. And a lot of our people are former law enforcement, former military, first responders, people who are used to running in, and while everybody else is running out, mm-hmm. and they've stood their ground through all this COVID and fires and unrest and all these crazy things that are going around our state, but and just helping to make our community safer. And so it's pretty incredible. 12 years now. Yeah,
and we're not talking about like rent-a-cops either. We're talking about like armed security officers. Like, these guys are the real deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we're down at the range every month, and shooting, and make sure we don't ever want to have to get in a shooting, but we're well prepared. And, I'm just really, really thankful that we have so many people in our community that are willing to do that tough job, especially with the strains that law enforcement has. Mm-hmm. Either the call volume is really high or limited resources, and we can just say yes, we'll be there, and we'll
especially out in the county areas.
Especially out in the county areas. Yeah. And I could tell you stories that are absolutely heartbreaking, but we're really thankful that we could be at the right place at the right time to help.
Right. Yeah. No, it's really cool that, that's been a big struggle for us as real estate brokers, like telling people about our challenges that come with, our security in the county. Yeah. But I'm thankful for Concierge Home and Business Watch. I do mention that every time that we have clients, because I just think it's so valuable. I think it is so valuable because I was driving. I've told you this story before too. So my wife, has a Mini Countryman, and it's sort of like a BMW, and I love driving it because it's kind of quick. It's like a go-kart. And so you can take Interstate 5 to get back to my house, but you can also take Granite Hill Road over the top, which is a little more whippy turny, and it's a lot more fun to drive. And so whenever I drive her car, I always go over the top of Granite Hill. And I was driving around going pretty quick, and I was flipping around the corners and kind of came up over the top of the hill, and I came up behind what looked like a cop car, and I was like, oh my God, they never have cops out here. And I got up on it, and then when the car turned left, it was actually a Concierge Home and Business Watch. So I was like, man, they're doing their job, and they're not even watching home and businesses. So
people call all the time and say, you guys give us so much peace of mind. Even if they're walking at the park and it's driving through the park doing their patrols or whatever, it gives them peace of mind, even if they're not particularly a client. So I love hearing stories like that. It's all about prevention, right?
Yeah.
It prevented you from
from doing something stupid. stupid.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't going crazy fast,
No,
but
of
it's, you know,
course.
faster than I probably should have been.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think about that all the time when I drive her car too now.
That's
and Now that
awesome.
happened, because it totally made my heart go, oh.
Believe it or not, in my experience, I see a police car behind me, I do the same thing. Okay,
Yeah.
my speed, very good. 'Cause
Yeah.
I don't want to get pulled over by a police officer that I know.
Yeah.
Especially, it's even worse. It's like,
Yeah.
Julie, really?
Yeah, you'd probably get let go. I don't even know why.
No. Oh, I maybe.
You do
I
the
mean,
Marcus Mariota thing, be like, no, sir, I deserve this ticket. You got to give me the ticket. Yeah.
I had to do that with a highway patrol officer on the way to the coast, and it was a speed trap. We all know where it is, right, between
Yeah.
the Oregon and California
Yeah.
coast.
Yeah.
And I had my kids in the car, and the officer was really professional, and I was going probably 7 miles over. It's ridiculous.
Right.
And so I sucked it up and didn't say anything about being a police officer, gave her all my ID, and she cited me righteously. My kids were so mad. Mom, why didn't you say something? I said, I thought this was a good lesson for you to know that you'd be respectful, and,
Yeah.
you know, I don't get any special favors. I'm not above the law. And they go, Mom, that's just stupid. You should have told her.
No, that's not, I mean, that's good parenting, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too.
Absolutely.
What are some of the things you just, brought you back to Grants Pass, really made you feel at home?
When I first moved here in 1977, I was a young teenager, and I was mad I didn't want to be here in the first place. And then I thought everybody in Oregon hated Californians. So we pull up in our station wagon, and we're all hiding under the seat, right? It's like, go faster, go faster. We don't want anybody shooting at us. Of course, nothing happened.
Shooting at us.
Yeah, because we just thought everybody in Oregon would hate Californians. And, we're all, how many times every day practically is, oh, where are you from? Oh, California.
Yeah.
Where are you from? Oh, California.
Every single person.
Exactly.
Don't ask him that, because he's from Nevada.
No, a rare one. But you are one that went out and came back and went out and came back. And I'm third generation of that. So I totally get it. But it just fell in love with it. Fell in love with the farm life, and got to go out to North Valley High School, which was the first year. It was the first, brand new high school I'd ever been to. I'd already been to 5 high schools, right? It was crazy times. And so anyway, fell in love with all of it. Fell in love with the people, and Growers Market was out here, you know, and we had a mini farm, and so we had people come out and they would pick fruits and vegetables, and we had a little shop in or a little farm stand in our barn, and the place is still out there now. It's not a farm anymore, but it's right there on Up River Road, and it was so much fun. All my little brothers and sisters got to grow up there. We all had our own animals. I had the dog Muffin, which was really cool, and I got to tell you a pig story one day, but not today. It was amazing. But this was in the 70s, and one of the things that Grants Pass had a reputation
People
for
are
is...
probably wondering why you pointed at me and tell a big story, but that's okay.
Hopefully they're listening and not watching.
Yeah.
But we had a lot of bikers back then, a lot of biker bars on G Street. And so my parents said we were exactly 1 mile to town, and our 2 favorite places to go in town were Blind George's for Blind George's popcorn, and for the Grants Pass Pharmacy for their floats. You could get a root beer float, or like
Phosphates
cherry
or
cokes
something.
and stuff. Yeah, all that stuff. It was so cool. But we couldn't walk on G Street because of all the biker bars, and so we had to go up a block, where... Anyway, it doesn't matter. The old Mayfair Market, and we had to walk up a block and then walk down a block to be able to get to Blind George's and pass up all the biker bars. I also learned how to drive in Grants Pass, and so on Friday and Saturday nights, we would cruise 6th and 7th Street, and then everybody would hang out up there at McDonald's and, shoot the bull and stuff and, hang out. So it was so funny when I come back 20 years later, and I'm going to Growers Market, and I'm still going to Blind George's, and still going to the Phosphate with my kids, getting to do all that fun stuff. Only now I'm cruising 6th and 7th Street on Friday and Saturday night as a police officer.
Yeah.
So it was really fun. But I had the opportunity as a Grants Pass police officer to work with our community and other officers to clean up a lot of stuff that was really tough back then. So all those biker bars have been gone for years. We had people try and recruit our young people off of I-5 corridor to, traffic, and we pushed them out of town and said, you can go anywhere, but you can't stay here. And we had white supremacists come into town and start recruiting at our high schools, and they were really targeting those kids who were coming from tough backgrounds, and they were really feeding them a lot of really, positive, oh, you're going to be so well taken care of, we'll be your family, all this kind of stuff.
It's the gang mentality. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And 100% of the time, this community came together, working side by side with us and other community leaders to say, not in our town. We stand against hate. We stand against this. We stand united. And that's this community. And no matter how crazy things get around us, push comes to shove, that's the community here.
Right.
And we're better for it because all those things are gone, and we have other issues now. But I work with people all the time where we're brainstorming, okay, how do we deal with a homeless issue? How do we deal with a drug issue? How do we deal with mental health issues? We don't have a community divided like you see so many other places, and we've fought really hard to have that union, right? So I hope and pray always that we have people that come here that just want to preserve that and be actively involved and say, yeah, we can make this situation even better, and we can make that even more, and strive to support small businesses and bring in young families, and it's just such a beautiful place. And we will not, and that I love this community, we will not kowtow to the bullies or bad guys, right?
Absolutely.
Full circle.
Yeah. Wonder Woman in the house. I told you.
Kidding.
Just saying.
I warned you.
That got intense right there.
No, I mean, you guys have been here. Michael's been here, a good portion of his life. And so, I mean, I moved up here in 2013, and I started, after I got my real estate license, I really started to realize that, you get involved in the Chamber of Commerce and, go to greeters and start meeting people and get involved in the community. Yeah. And what I discovered is that there are so many generous people in this community that all want the same thing, which is a better place for all of us to live.
Absolutely.
And I love it. And it literally is the inspiration for this podcast. And Michael, I'm sure you can tell Julie's passion for this.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to talk to you so much, is just because it's just your passion for that exact same thing. And what I've experienced since living here is, it's awesome. So
thank you.
Yeah,
thank you for the opportunity to do that. I don't get to share this kind of stuff ever.
Yeah. Well, it's fun. That's what this is for.
Yeah, no, it's all community driven. That's what we want to talk about and get a spotlight on everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Well, tell me about some like local businesses that stand out to you. Just some, I'm sure there's several that are good, but besides Dutch Brothers, that's not allowed. That's the easy answer.
But a fun little story is that the Boersma boys lived right down the street from us, and so my brothers and sisters all went to school with them because they were younger than me, and so they were neighbors. It was really kind of cool. And I was a Grants Pass police officer the day that they opened up their first little push stand on 6th and G Street. There were people everywhere, and I go, where did all these people come from? I had no idea what was going on. I'm not a big coffee drinker, never have been. So I've loved getting to see them thrive.
Isn't it wild?
It is wild. Yeah. It is wild. And the coolest thing is that that Travis in particular, of course, is just as committed to this community as we are, and has the money to back it. So he doesn't just say, wow, what a waste of a building. He says, how can we use that building and give back? And so now my grandkids are getting to play soccer on beautiful fields that have been built by Dutch Brothers, and indoor soccer fields, so they get to play all year round because he's given back. And, we do security. So, we're out at the racetrack and those kinds of things, and get to work side by side with, and so much good stuff has come from that. But every day I get to see businesses giving back, and they're constantly, it's like there's 50 businesses collecting peanut butter at the same time for young kids.
I love Kelly's Automotive. I think that is such the coolest thing.
One of them, So Kelly's Automotive, and they're constantly supporting nonprofits, and we have the most amazing nonprofit businesses locally that are really giving back and making a difference every single day, and they are doing it on shoestrings. Hearts with a Mission are finding transitioning kids in really tough home situations and allowing those kids to have some kind of a family life where they don't get backed up in school, and they're still in school, and they get a great meal every day. And I can't count how many times, we're all fighting who's going to bring dinner this time for them, and who's going to, bring lunch or clothes or whatever. And Maslow Project and Women's Crisis Support Team, I mean, they're amazing. But small businesses are rallying, supporting all of those because they're not getting outside support, right? Because they're nonprofits. So especially if they're faith-based. Gospel Rescue Mission. Before the Gospel Rescue Mission, there's no place to put people, right? And now there's a place where they can actually go and learn job skills and get clean and sober or whatever they need. The Sobering Center is so incredible because, people need a place to go. Traditionally, the only place they can go is jail.
Right.
And so now they can go to the sobering center, and a family member can bring somebody who's really hurting, right? It doesn't have to be law enforcement. And every single one of those people gets seen by a counselor before they leave. So they have an opportunity, maybe if their issue is heroin or their issue is alcohol or whatever, they have the opportunity to get into some kind of a program while they're like sober, right? Imagine that. And the recidivism rate is nothing compared to jails. But yeah, Applin's Autobuy, they're always doing stuff. I told them we should have bought stock in Applin's because we have 27 fleet vehicles with the company, and there's always somebody bumping a deer or something. So especially at 3 o'clock in the morning on a rural road. So many businesses, and I'll leave here and I'll think of 50 of them. But
yeah, there's a lot. Jody's actually coming to talk to the YPN group next week.
I saw that.
So I'm pretty pumped about that. I just think she's awesome.
Her.
Yeah,
she is amazing.
Yeah. So
there's so many and amazing businesses like Matsakazu's have been our favorite Japanese restaurants. Ikasa Flores have been around since we were almost kids, and it's still some of our favorite places to go. But now we have we have Cuban, and we have Thai, and we have tapas, and we have so many food options. And now it's not just winery areas, right, in Josephine and Jackson counties, but now we have breweries, and we have craft beers, and so we're no longer the old people neighborhood, right? Old people can coexist with young people, but there's stuff to do here. I remember when In-N-Out opened up, and they bring people in from all over the country. They're shining star people to open up a new In-N-Out, and so they'd come to us. We were doing security. They come to us and they go, "What is there to do in this town?" And I go, "What time do you get off? 10 o'clock?
Nothing.
Or Sunday.
Nothing. Exactly.
Sometimes Mondays.
Yeah, you want to go to lunch on Monday? Forget it.
Forget it.
Yeah.
But it's awesome too.
But that adds to the charm of this town.
Does.
Yeah,
it does.
I had clients in here Sunday and Monday, and they're like, "Oh, where can you go for breakfast?" I'm like, Denny's. So they end up going to Denny's both days.
No, Michael. No, don't do that. The Powderhorn, Train Depot, Mimosas, Elmer's. Yeah, there's plenty of options.
We'll get you trained up, Michael.
I know.
That's a good joke for sure. I really hope they didn't go to Denny's though.
They did.
Oh God.
No.
They did. They went for the pancakes.
Well, all right. That's about the safest thing on the menu. No offense to Denny's. Denny's didn't come after me. But
no, we got some nice restaurants in this town, and I'm a big foodie at heart, so I appreciate that.
And all the fun stuff. I mean, the jet boats, incredible, and you can do the dinner cruise, concerts in the park all summer for free, and they have some pretty cool name bands, local bands, and
the Chamber of Commerce does a great job with that.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that is the gift to the community, and it's really cool. Yeah, no, there's a lot of good stuff. I mean, and all the hiking trails and all the outdoor recreation and stuff there is to do. I mean, there's a ton here. So it's
and wine stroll and beer tap and art along the road. I mean, the artistry is unbelievable. We work every single one of those events in retirement. I'm going to go to every event not in uniform. That's on my bucket list, to go to every event and not actually be on duty. Church in the park every year. I mean, other than COVID, churches from all over the area come together and just worship together and bless the community. How cool is that? I mean, who does that? So
just people getting together and just doing that kind of stuff is great.
It's an awesome place. Awesome place.
So, best piece of advice somebody ever gave you?
My mom was one of the smartest people I know, and she always had some really good sayings. She'd say, "Never borrow anything you can't afford to replace. Never lend anything you can't afford to lose." Right?
That's why I bought that brand new light. That's up there.
Exactly. You're going to do that, or you're going to buy one for your brother-in-law.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
I've had some really good advice. As a police officer, my very first night in field training, my field training officer, after a really horrific accident, it was the first time I'd seen a decapitated body. Took me to Chinese food. That was a little weird.
The first time, so she's seen several.
Yeah. I know. But I got a little fortune cookie, and inside the fortune cookie it said, "Have respect for yourself and others will too." And I carried that in my pocket in a little piece of plastic my whole career.
Wow.
And because I'd have officers just act like, don't that you're no No, we're here, we're public servants, and we're here to make a difference in our communities, and we're here to, protect and serve. And that really kept me on the straight and narrow in my law enforcement career, I think.
Julie Thomas, the Wonder Woman of Grants Pass, got her best piece of advice from a fortune cookie.
I know, right? I know, right?
That's awesome, though. Say it again, though. What did it say on the fortune cookie?
It said, have respect for yourself, and others will, too.
There you go.
There you go.
The other thing
That's probably why you never had any trouble with sober people, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because I did. I treated them with dignity and respect. The other thing is that my field training officer, the really great one, because I had like 6, but the really great one, guy was just spitting on me, chipping on me, yelling at me, calling me every name in the book, and I took it as a civil servant, right? And afterwards, he said, piece of advice, just because you put on that gun and badge doesn't mean that you gave up your right to be treated with dignity and respect as a human being. So at the end of the day, you have the right to walk away. You have the right to stop whatever that assault is. And that was really good for me because it let me know that there was a line in the sand, whether it's professional as a business owner, whether it's a law enforcement advisor, whether I'm in a foreign country and all of a sudden it's gotten really political all of a sudden and I don't speak the language. It's really helped me to know that as human beings, we should be treating people that way, but that we can expect that as well, right?
Yeah.
To be treated with dignity as a human being.
100%.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it a lot.
Just don't ask me my FTO's name. It was something weird.
Sir.
It was a few years ago. Yeah, sir.
It was a few years ago.
Sir or ma'am. Yeah.
That's right. Sir or ma'am.
You may want to get into this. This is kind of a question off topic.
Oh, I warned you.
No, it's okay. No, we kind of were talking about it a little bit earlier about the issues that law enforcement are dealing with right now. With all the work that you've done with communities overseas and here in Grants Pass and other areas, I'm sure there's not like a quick fix, but what do you think we need to do as a society to kind of fix the issues that we're having with law enforcement right now?
This is deep.
Yeah, it is. It is a little. I mean,
and we have about 30 seconds, right?
There's you don't have to like get crazy into it, but I mean, just
So the thing with law enforcement is multifaceted. Unfortunately, number one is funding, because we never were able to recover our ONC funds after 2011 and 12. It just continued to dwindle. So funding is a big deal, and I've worked with a lot of groups and a lot of task force trying to say, how do we fund law enforcement? And we have so many awesome opportunities here that we haven't tapped into, like our natural resources is huge, right? Other funding sources that we haven't tapped into. And traditionally, people just automatically go for more tax, more tax, more tax. One of the reasons why people move here, besides the great weather and the great people, is the low taxes.
Low taxes,
Exactly. And we don't have really low housing costs anymore. So, I mean, that really does help offset people who are on a fixed income to be able to buy a little more because the taxes are a little bit lower. So I think the funding issue is a really big deal. But in the interim of finding additional funding, honest to God, for my whole career, it doesn't matter in what capacity, what hat I was wearing, what uniform I was wearing, the best thing that law enforcement communities can do is to work together. Because if you can get the community and local government and local leaders and community members to come together and have a conversation about, okay, where's the problem? And then problem solve that. So there's a problem solving model that we go through. But anyway, if people would just look at the core issue and then understand more and more about the problem and then tackle the problem together in a multifaceted approach, there's almost nothing we can't do. I have literally been around the world, not everywhere, but I've been around the world, and every single place is post-conflict. Every single place is post-dictatorship. I mean, bombings and horrible things. And I get there and it's like the only thing we have is human beings to work with. And the human beings, even at the grassroots level, are what make the greatest impact. And those communities that have the relationship and are willing to say, okay, don't just get all healthcare providers at the table to talk about mental health. You need to have police officers there. You have to have business people there. You need to have counselors there. You have to have, they're seeing it in the schools. So you have 100%. To have schools ready. So every group, you figure out the diverse group and you come together with the different perspectives, and there's almost nothing you can't accomplish. And the other thing I think that communities do is they get they get narrow I can't think of what the word is.
A narrow focus.
Yeah, they get too narrow focused. Instead of saying, well, where else is this problem existing and who's doing something about it, right? That's why I feel like I'm thankful I can go to another country and say, this is what we did right and this is what we didn't do right. And you can learn from that. So before marijuana became legal, I would have, had I been in charge, I'd be in Colorado going, what's working, what's not working, because they legalized it before we even considered it, right? And we didn't do that to the extent that it needed to be done. Or at all. So I know there were some law enforcement that got to go out and have some conversations, but it wasn't enough, of course, because we didn't have all the right people at the table. And so if on my dying bed, if there's one recommendation I can say for every community in our country and around the globe, where you have a democracy, you have to work together, and you can't throw a blind eye, and you can't bury your head in the sand. You have to say, okay, what skill sets do I have? What can I provide? If you picture a pie, and in the center of the pie is the problem, so let's say it's drug addiction, right? And then there's pieces of the pie. People just expect law enforcement to be the whole pie to fix drug addiction. Well, law enforcement doesn't have the resources to do that, even fully funded. But if we have drug counselors, one slice, law enforcement, one slice, parent leaders, one slice, other advocates, one slice, a nonprofit, one slice, and everybody brings to the table their own expertise, their own contribution. There's almost nothing you can't do. And I've seen it over and over again. But we just get so narrow focused, sometimes we forget that we have resources available. We just need to get the right people at the table that are willing to have that conversation.
Yeah. Beautifully spoken. By the way, I love
kind.
it. Yeah.
Very well put. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. No, I love it. We just got to work together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And all of us have something to contribute. Quick example. I know we're going to be out of time.
No, it's okay. We got all the time we need. Yeah.
We had a neighborhood. In fact, this worked overseas as well. But we had a neighborhood that was really, really rough, and it was right here in Grants Pass. And I won't say who it is because some people may still live there, but they do live there. It was a really rough neighborhood, and there was drug house, there was vehicle thefts, neighbors were fighting. I mean, at one point, neighbors were threatening to kill each other. And there was domestic violence, there was sexual assault against a minor. I mean, it was all happening in this one neighborhood. And so we did exactly what I talked about, and we got all the players together and everybody involved and said, okay, what can you contribute? And at the end of the day, we cleaned up all the bad stuff, and it came time to clean up the neighborhood. So all the bad guys were gone, right? And we built up the neighborhood, and now it's time to do a cleanup. Well, we had really young, strong people living in the neighborhood, other people who, like a landscaper, he had tools, other people had stuff, and there was a lot of elderly people in the neighborhood. And they said, we can't do anything. I said, can you cook? They go, yeah, we can cook. So they cooked for all the workers, and we all showed up, the neighborhood, and me plainclothes as a police officer, and we showed up and we cut down blackberries and we mowed lawns and we painted and we cleaned up this whole neighborhood. Everybody played their part. I don't cook well, but I could shove actually I was doing weed whacking and digging and stuff like that. So there's, again, if we all play a part. It doesn't have to be the biggest part, and none of us can do it alone.
We need more of that today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's cool. Like I said, Wonder Woman.
You are too kind. You are too kind. Thank you.
So what's next for Julie Thomas? For Julie and
what's
Jeff
on that
Thomas?
bucket list?
Yeah,
Tell us a little bit.
Okay, so there's two things that I have failed miserably on.
Okay.
One is getting any time with my husband, because it took us 30 years to find each other. We met overseas. We came back here, started the business. He had to go back overseas and continue working to pay for the growth of the company. I had to continue doing international work over the years to continue to fund the company to grow to meet the needs of the community. So in our 13 years of being married, we've been apart 9 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, wow. That's way too long, and we're really old. So so figuring out a way for us to be together every single day and grow old together is number one on our bucket list.
Right on.
Number two on our bucket list is we've had such a great opportunity working around the world. And so we've seen a lot, and there's still a lot more to see. But you know what we've never done? We've never seen our own country.
Yeah.
I've never been to a single national park. I have family I haven't seen in 20 years.
Wow.
And kids and grandkids here now that, I want to go camping with and hiking with and stuff. So
You've not seen one national park?
not one national park. Wow. Actually, I drove through Death Valley at the age of 9.
Is that
You had to have gone up to Crater Lake at least.
No.
No, what?
I know.
Okay.
I've always worked. Always worked.
That is a tragedy, Julie.
It is a tragedy. There are probably 30 states I've never even seen. So we actually have a truck and travel trailer, and we are planning, hopefully in the near future, to be able to take some road trips and see our own country and just spend time with each other and our kids and grandkids before they get too old, and just enjoy our community and our special events, not working but just enjoying. And those are the biggest things on our bucket list.
Yeah.
And no more international travel. I'm done.
Done.
Yeah.
Thank you. Especially in a mask. Thank
Yeah.
you very
Yeah.
much.
Oh, yeah.
For sure, I bet.
Yeah, I don't want to spend 12 hours on a plane with a mask on.
No.
I'll pass.
Yeah.
Some of the places I worked over COVID were, one of them was, I've never flown one flight this long, 17 hours from Saudi Arabia in a mask at the beginning of COVID, and they didn't have any services, right?
Yeah.
So I had 2 little water bottles
Oh
for
my
17 hours in a mask.
Breathing through a mask. Oh, that must have been awful.
It was horrible. I wanted to come out of
Getting
my
cotton mouth
skin.
just thinking about it.
I know, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm done with
Yeah.
that.
Well, we're going to Yellowstone in May.
We
So-
are too.
Are you really?
Yellowstone is number 1 on our list. Yes.
Yellowstone's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
In April. Okay,
Yeah,
good.
that's cool.
So-
So you'll be there before me.
Yep,
Yeah.
I'll clear the hiking trails for
Yeah,
you.
yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, no, we went to Glacier, gosh, 6 or 7 years ago. That place is spectacular. And then before we moved up here, my wife and I lived in Fresno, which is right by Yosemite. So we used to go to Yosemite all the time, and that place is just as spectacular.
Also on our list.
And then we lived in Vegas, and so we went to Zion National Park and Arches and all that kind of stuff. You got to do it. Julie. It's
all of those are on our first road trip list. So
Yeah.
I'm going to call you and say, okay, this is where we're going. This is what's your recommendation? Because we have no idea. We're just looking at maps and Googling.
you just do them all.
I know,
Yeah,
right?
do as many as you can. Yeah,
I'm super, super excited.
yeah, and you have a trailer too, which is so cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're really, really thankful.
Yeah, stay out of the hotels.
We did a few years back. I want to say probably 10 or 15 years ago. I went with a friend and we did a cross country.
Wow.
And we stayed on all back country roads. So we didn't get on one interstate. Starting with, I-5 for a little bit and like the 10 for just a short period, just to jump from one to the other. But Yellowstone down through Colorado and Route 66 and then through Texas and like hit a bunch of stuff. That was a very fun trip.
Gosh, and how long did you take to do it?
I was gone it took about 9-10 days. Wow. Yeah. Cause we just drove like from after breakfast till about dinner time.
Right.
And stopped along the way. And then, wherever that time was is where we stopped. So nothing was really planned out.
Nice.
That's how to do it.
That
It's
is
like,
the way to
it was
do it.
pretty cool. And,
That's
as
so
we get closer,
awesome.
one of us would be like Googling what's for dinner, type thing, where
so
we're going to be at. So
awesome. I love that. You got to do it, and you have to do it while you're young. The one thing we learned working overseas is if we're working constantly, but then like in Kosovo, I was just a few hours from Greece, so we could go to Greece on the weekend or Germany and go skiing or whatever. But we saw people from all over the world, and they were like getting off buses and ships with walkers and wheelchairs and on oxygen and stuff because they worked their whole lives to be able to do this, and now they're having to do it into their 80s and 90s when it's not as much fun. Mm-hmm. And I tell people, just like you're telling young people, get out there and do it now while you can. Even when your kids are young, get out while you can. Wait till they're walking.
Yeah.
And I tried doing Cathedral.
Hills.
It's outside of Sedona.
Oh.
Cathedral Rock.
Oh, right.
Yeah, with my youngest son, and he was not walking; he was crawling, and so of course, dirt, bugs, rocks, everything. I was like, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
So once they're walking, you can take them anywhere, and then they get acclimated to traveling. And it's so awesome, and there's so many beautiful places to go.
Yeah.
There is.
I'm tired of looking at pictures. I'm ready to take those pictures.
Does that mean retirement is on the horizon?
Retirement is on the horizon.
Right.
I actually in fact, it was in the last couple of days, wrapped up my last project for Ukraine, for DOJ.
Oh, wow.
And after 2 years of working with them specifically in Ukraine, and I just turned down another job with DOJ. So I'm done.
You're
I'm
done.
done with international work. There's a lot younger people that can do what I do.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there are very capable people out there, but you are one very special individual, Julie. No,
thank you.
I love you to death. I think you're awesome. So,
love you back, buddy.
thank you for coming to do this.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you for making it awesome and fun.
Yeah, we're trying. So it's
Told you were going to do all the talking.
Yeah.
You did an awesome job.
You did great.
You guys are awesome. And I'm just so thankful that you're doing this, because you're getting the word out about our awesome community and all the great businesses that we have and the great people. And hey, if you want to be a part of this, come on down.
Yeah.
Exactly.
If you want to be a bad guy or bully, stay where you are.
Yeah.
Beat it.
Beat it.
All right, cool.
On
That's
that
a
note.
wrap.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Hometown Hustle Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. And for more information or to connect with Daniel and Michael, check out www.hometownhustlepodcast.com. We'll see you next time.